Hi, everybody. I'm BJ. I'm the genealogy specialist at Maine State Library. And tonight I'm going to talk about one of those things that everybody should be doing and nobody does as well as they should, and that people tend to think of as boring. And I'm going to tell you that it can be, but it will save you effort and sanity in the long run if you do it well. This is something that even as someone who had taught freshman comp and been an editor, when I started doing genealogy, I was just like everybody else and wasn't very good at citing my sources, which means that I have stuff from back 25 years ago I look at and go, where the hell did I get this piece of information? Fortunately, I've always been pretty good about paying for photocopies. So I'm sometimes able to use the photocopy to track down the book. But I've got like comments from deeds that I didn't take down enough information to be able to go back and figure out what actual deed something was from. As I said before we started, I have brain cramps just like everybody else. So I'm going to show you what I do. And the two biggest things to remember with citing your sources are completeness and consistency. Settle on a system that gets you what you need and keep doing it. Essentially, we're Hansel and Greteling our way through this. What you want in a citation is enough to get you back to where you were. If let's say you work with a record, something doesn't seem like it is necessary for what you're looking at, and 6 months or 6 years later, you find some other piece of information where you suddenly go, hey, wait a minute, what was in that other record? You want to be able to go back to it. And so that's basically how I've developed what I do, so that I can find my way back. I am going to tell you a couple things that most people will say are, at least in editing and freshman comp and even librarian circles, are bordering on the heretical, but I'm going to get you through this so that you do this without having to worry too much. You do not need to choose a particular system from an organization. There are a bunch of systems for citing things out there. The Modern Language Association, MLA, which my brain now living here in Maine always hears MLA and thinks Maine Library Association, not Modern Languages Association, but that's a different problem. The American Psychological Society has a system. Harvard University, University of Chicago have systems. Associated Press has a system. I've ended up doing a hybrid of a couple different systems for what I do, because those big organizations, for the most part, are not dealing with old original records. You're dealing with all of those that I mentioned, you're dealing with books and journal articles. And so they don't necessarily adjust well to citing a deed from 1833 or a baptism from 1767. And so when I did the program at Strathclyde, we used a modified Harvard system for the originals, and I've now modified that modified Harvard system, but I think it's a way that works well. So this is going to be broken into two parts. The first part, I'm going to talk about books and journal articles and other published material and show you the tricks for doing this painlessly. And then I will pivot and talk about what I do with original records. whether I'm seeing them in person or through a website. So let me share my screen. Come on, computer. There we go. So you guys should now be seeing my screen. I'm just trying to get everything in the background set up so that I can see what we're doing here. Okay, so here we are. This is the computer catalog for some of the libraries here in Maine, the university system, state library, state law and legislative library. So I'm going to put in the name of a book, one of my favorites, called Albion Seed. It's about colonial statistics and other stuff, but and I'm going to hit submit. And as you can see here, there are both. Here's the book. I'm not going to worry about this as an electronic resource. If you get to that point and you're stuck, contact me. I'm going to click here. And all of the information you need is on this page. Except for if you are using the book, you'd want a page number. I discovered today, unfortunately, this doesn't work. Cite this item. I've sent it to the IT people. I think it's actually WorldCat's fault. They have changed. And whoever designed the new family search site, I think also designed the new WorldCat site and convinced people it looked all modern and wonderful, but it's completely, I don't want to say it's completely unusable, but it is closer to unusable than it should be. So unfortunately, if we hit this, we get this nice little book saying, I don't know what happened. So anyhow, so what we can do, rather than pull all the information out of here, which you do have, you have the author's name, the title, and who published it. All you'd need is a page number for something. We're going to go to WorldCat, and we're going to put in Albion Seed here, and we're going to hit search. And look at this. Here it is right at the top. And we're going to click here. And this is a little hard to see, which is why I wanted to walk you through this. It doesn't say cite. It's got little quotation marks. But if we click here, this pops up. And we can select, this is the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association. I don't know what ASA is. Maybe American Sociology Association, Chicago, and MLA. Click here. I went to the University of Chicago, so we're going to go there. Now, these aren't perfect. This is the publication date is a little quirky. So we're going to hit copy citation. And then when I printed it or copied it into my document, I'd have to fix that. I will tell you, when you were learning in school, they probably had the publication date at the end. The more modern way of doing this, let's look at MLA as well. See how they've still got it at the end? Let's see what APA does. Yeah, see, they've got it here. The reason I like having this at the beginning is if you are doing multiple things by one person, it's generally, if you're putting them in a bibliography, you start with the oldest and work to the newest because it's essentially alphabetizing them. And so having this here rather than at the end makes that easy. But so let's go back to the Chicago and hit copy citation. And it's to the clipboard, and then you can go into an email, you can go into your favorite word processor and plunk this in. That's as easy as it can be. And again, all you'd need to add at this point is if you're using a particular page, if you're using a fact, you would have to put in a page number. This works for articles as well. So let's go here to the digital main library. Same place you would go to get to Ancestry and MyHeritage. We're going to go to Academic One File. So we're going to, this works for some of the other databases as well, but I just want to use this one to show you. Come on, computer. There we go. So we're going to put in here, let's put in, how about Salem witch trials as a subject. And we get a bunch of academic articles. And what we can do is let's scroll down to this one. Let's see what we've got. Here's an article. It's peer reviewed, which is nice. So again, we go here, and up here you have various choices. You can get a link that's a lot cleaner than this. You can print this, you can download it, you can send it. I like the little paper airplane for sending. Or again, you get the little quotation marks and cite. Again, a pop-up. And they give you 4 choices. And they do it for you, including, and what this does, you know, all of us were old enough pretty much, except maybe for 1 or 2 of you here. When I went to school, we didn't have the internet. And so this part of the citation from here to here wouldn't be there. But the rest of this is pretty much the same as what you would have learned in school. You have the author's name, the article title, what journal it's in, the information of which issue, here's the page number, and then this is where you found it on the internet. So let's say you'd seen this in person, and then you later wanted to put this in what you were writing, you could skip this part. But the same thing is, you would go here, you'd hit select, and you can, there are actually now tools that do this, but you can also just do a Control V or to copy, Control C, sorry, and then a Control V into your thing. So for those of us who went to school before the internet, this is an amazing thing. You don't have to think about it. The only thing you need to think about here is if you're quoting something specific and needing a page number. So Google has their own thing called Google Scholar. And with both Google Scholar and Google Books, you get the same thing. So let's put in Salem witch trials here. And here you're actually getting books and articles. So here's one that looks like it's from Smithsonian. And again, we can click here and get the citation. How many of you wish that they'd had this when you were in high school and college? Right?
Oh, that would have so been much better.
Yeah.
Especially for a 30-page paper.
Right. And so you can see, you know, you still want to sort of know what information you need to make sure you've got it. But this is basically anytime you click a site on a source like this, it's going to give you enough to get back to the book or article you were looking at. And quite frankly, if you look at these slight differences, you know, it doesn't, some of it doesn't matter. You know, knowing, like, you know, when I was taught this in high school and college, you had to know where the publisher was. Well, that's not, you know, with the internet, that's not as big a deal anymore. You just look for the publisher's website. So let's take another article here. Here's this same one from that other, from that I'd used before, before. So again, you get the thing I don't like here. Oh, here it is. Cite this article. One of the things I've noticed is that they don't always make this easy to find. You know, sometimes it is just the little quotation marks. Now notice, if we went in this way, we'd have to pay $40 for this. But since the state pays for Gale Academic one file for everyone in Maine, you can go that way. But again, you get to cite this article and we can download it. This DOI, which I'm blanking on what it actually stands for, but this is basically a digital locator, so that even if they change other parts of this, this will stay stable, as opposed to sometimes the link doesn't stay stable. And you can download the citation, and you can see here it downloaded for me.
Digital object identifier.
Okay, I knew it was something pretty basic, and as I said, brain cramps happen.
And it's supposedly stable and free of changes on what.
Right. The other thing I think is neat here, and this is just for those of us, again, who were in school long before the internet, if we click here, back on this, what's interesting is, in addition to the cite this article, if we go here and we scroll up again, this list of citations is the references from this book. And so you can, you know, a lot of this stuff is not related to Salem, but I could go through and say, oh, these two are about Salem. I probably want to find those. And we can scroll down, and yet here's one about New England witchcraft cases, folk devils, and moral panics. And so you can now leapfrog through bibliographies much more easily than you could when I went to graduate school for the first time, and we won't say how many years ago that was. So that's what I'm going to say about our about the thing. Oh, and let me just show you the one other one. JSTOR is similar. If you're in Bangor, stop by the library and get a Bangor card, and you get to use JSTOR, which is similar to the Academic One file. Got all sorts of nice stuff. So that's that. So the whole doing citations for books and articles has gotten really easy. So here's
BJ, have you tried using Zotero and the Zotero connector as a way to automatically create citations?
not as much as I should. It's one of those things that both of my most recent rounds of graduate school, which were 11 years and 7 years ago now, they paid for one of the university paid for us to have one of the citation programs that has gone bye-bye, whose name I'm not remembering. So I have done that. And nowadays I'm doing little enough of it that I haven't learned how to use the new ones. I should, I want to. I just haven't had, I've done enough of these in my life that I don't need that for the little bit I do these days. So anyhow,
I found Zotero really easy. Well, while you were talking, I knew there was this Zotero connector thing. I'd never used it before. So I
mhm,
managed to download a reasonably good citation of Albion seed. I read 3 or 4 lines of instruction and tried it, and I got a decent citation in Zotero.
good. I'm
So
glad to hear that.
it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I mean,
And
programs like that
it adds
have to be,
metadata to it as well, which
yeah.
is kind of cool.
Okay. That sounds really good. Maybe what I'll do, I'll play around with it. Maybe what I'll do sometime is do like a Monday night program where I can walk people through it. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. And what I did is I was getting ready for this. I went to a couple papers I had written and pulled out a bunch of citations. And these are, for the most part, original records. A few of them aren't. And they follow a format I like really well. I'm actually going to blow this up so you guys can see it. There we go. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this file and another one I'm going to show you out tomorrow. So don't worry about taking notes. I will send this out tomorrow. So what I like about this is we start by giving what kind of record it is. And you can see here, I haven't been completely consistent. This is the one I really like, where so I really, if I were doing this well and consistently, I'd put the 1849 here. So the year, the jurisdiction, meaning, this town and the city, or if it's a county level record, the county, the date, the name of the person who is involved, and then if there's a volume and page number. I also, even if it's not marked, often count the line number, just as a way of being extra careful. This one I viewed in person, and so I put that there because I wasn't able to photocopy this. I could only handwrite the notations. And so that tells me that I'm not going to have a photocopy. This is one where I looked at the microfilm at Family Search. Now, if I were being really good, I probably would have put familysearch.org here, but I figured that for my purposes of keeping track of my stuff, or if I'm handing a report to one of you guys, if I say it's on a family history library film, you're going to know I went to Family Search to see it. This is one, those of you who are familiar with the TAN books of the vital records from Massachusetts that were done in the early 20th century. I kept this same format rather than doing it as a book citation, just because I wanted to keep all of the births together when I was doing this. Because this is a paper I ended up doing a bibliography for, as well as footnotes. And so this gets me, this is a case, again, I probably should put this here as well. But as you see here, in this case, I don't bother to put the parents' names. I just put the name of the person who was born or who died. For marriages, I put bride and groom's name. Here's a case where the name is written incorrectly in the register, but I know it's the right person. So I put in that it's actually written as an index as Western. So when I go back to find it, I'm not wondering why I can't find it looking for Weston. Does that make sense to people? Why I put that comment there? Gravestones, if I've seen it in person, again, I put cemetery visit and my name and the date. I often see these just saying the gravestone, the name of the cemetery and the town. I like to put some level of direction, of street address. With the reason, for example, in Danvers, in addition to this Putnam Leroy Cemetery, there's a Putnamville Cemetery, and then there's like a Putnam, some other family name cemetery. And so by putting this in, I'm it's making doubly certain that people, whether it's me or somebody else, can get back to where I was. This is a small cemetery. There are fewer than 100 graves. If it's larger than that, I might well put additional information like at western edge, 2 rows from fence. Just again, remember, we're breadcrumbing it so that if I wanted to go back to find the same grave 5 years from now, where I'd be able to see it. If something's on Find a Grave, I just put findagrave.com and the memorial number and the date I saw it at the website. That kind, the access is one of the things that's changed. You want to put down, like, so this is the date I went to that cemetery. This is the date I pulled this from Find a Grave. And again, this is going back to the idea of, you get gravestones that get knocked over by the guy on the riding mower and it's not there anymore, or they've, someone's deleted this. Well, it was here on that date. Does that make sense to everybody? Probate file, the date. This is the county level rather than a town level. And then the identifiers, that anything I can find. So a volume and a page number, there's a file number. And again, this one I saw on a film or digitized film. So don't panic. After I show you this, a couple more of these, I'm going to show you how I make this easy. So let's go down the page. Sometimes you have something like, in this case, I had a letter from a young woman to her brother. So I identify it as the letter and who it's from and who it's to and the date, and hoping that within this folder of papers, that's the only one with that particular combination of sender and recipient and date. I saw it at the Danvers Archival Center in Danvers. This is essentially a call number for in this archive. And then they don't give it a real name, but I chose to call it this Weston and Sears Family Papers, just to have an easy way to refer to it, because I'm more likely to remember that than PR West L8. Right? I mean, anyone else going to remember PR West L8? Not me. And then you can see here are 2 other things coming from that same file. This is a pedigree chart he did. I know he did it. He signed it. The cousin who donated this to the Danvers Archival Center had miscellaneous notes on pieces of paper in a 3-ring binder. So I gave it the miscellaneous notes on the families as a name within that collection. This is a diary that's down in the Historical Society in Pennsylvania. One of the things I could add to this, first of all, this starts out the same, but then the date that I was interested in is also in this book. So I put both of those in one, as opposed to doing two separate footnotes. This diary has also been transcribed and published in the Susquehanna County Historical Society's magazine. And I would put, if I were quoting this now, I would put that in there as well. Saying that I'd seen it, but it's also available this way. These next two are two web pages. And what I've done is, here's who put the page together. And then this is the page name and the link and when I accessed it. I tend to do death notices and obituaries and marriage notices in newspapers this way rather than as articles, because the article format doesn't, there isn't always, there's not really a title to go with the death notice. And so, or the obituary other than the person's name. So I've decided this works better for me than the article for this. And again, and these two are actually on the same page. My grandfather, this is a death notice. It's the couple lines with not much other information other than his name and the time for the service. And then this is the full obituary on the same page, but in a different column. And so you see here, I give the date of the newspaper, and then the column and page, so that you can you could go back and find it. And then I saw this at Fulton History, which I've shown you guys the newspaper website. It's not at newspapers.com. This would let you go back and find this if you wanted to go find this. This tells you where I saw it.
Question.
Yes.
When you're citing like a web page, those addresses can change over time. So 4 or 5 years from now, somebody could go and try and find that, and it's not there anymore, correct?
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
Well, there are a couple ways to deal with it. One is to just not worry about it. Okay. And say, it was there when I saw it. Yeah. But that's one reason, if you give the name of the organization and then this, if this link doesn't work, you can go to, say, Google and restrict your search to danvershistory.org and then search Page House, for example. Which is why, you don't just give this. You give the other information about what the page is so that you can go back. That's one of those things there's no really good, easy answer to. As you saw with that link from Ursus, WorldCat has changed stuff and we can't link anymore, or that link doesn't work.
You could take a photo, I suppose, to document it too.
I often do a screenshot and put it in my, and when we get to what I'm going to show you, the form I created, you'll see how I deal with this somewhat. But if I've taken a screenshot of something and you're reading an article I have in a magazine, you can't go to that screenshot. You can only go to the website. But this should give you enough that if they've kept this on the website but changed the address, you should still be able to find it. But this is one of these places where I'm, as I said, I'm semi-heretical on this. I just find it easier to label them death notice or obituary and put them in with the births, marriages, and deaths rather than as a citation for an article. It just, for what we're doing, it works better, in my opinion. And then again, when you get into deeds and court stuff, whatever you can find that gives you pages and other information to go back to. And it's going to vary depending on how things are set up. The one other thing I wanted to show you before we go back, did I put it in here? No, I didn't. Shoot. Often when I do a film number, I will put in both the film number and the image number. Did I do it for any of these? No, I didn't. And that way, if somebody goes up to this film number, they can also go in and then type the image number in the in the correct box and get to it. But that's something that I guess I didn't put in here. So anyhow, let me show you. I'm going to have to stop sharing so I can go into a different file. Let me check yeah, and somebody commented about the Wayback Machine, and that's one of the reasons for giving the date, is that sometimes helps. And yeah, this is when I do the citations, the stuff I've been doing the last 5 or 6 years, I've just been putting in footnotes into Word. I haven't been using anything fancy. And this works for the footnotes in Word. But what I'm going to show you now is my little cheat sheet. And I will send this to you guys, and you can use it and make your life easier. I'm all for making life easy and not reinventing the wheel. So can you see my screen? Good. That's what it's supposed to do at this point. And let's do this. So what I've done is I like charts and forms and graphs and all of that. So what I've done is this. And what I'll do here, when I'm going somewhere to do research, I print out a bunch of these. I'm fortunate at work, I can print double-sided. But single-sided would work too and give you more room for notes. So record types, that would be like birth, death, marriage, guardianship, deed, the year, the jurisdiction, Kennebec County, Maine, Sanford, York County, Maine, St. John's Church, Podunk, Tennessee, whatever the jurisdiction that created the record is, the name of the person involved, and if it's a marriage, the second name, and then the date within the year. And then I've labeled these volume, page, and line, but you might end up with folio, folder, page, something like that. But I've only a couple times had to go more than 3 identifiers. The collection is, what group of records are you looking at? So, that example from the Danvers Archival Center was the Weston Sears family papers. This would be something like, at Ancestry, select Ohio marriage records, or probate records, England, 1859 to 1920, or whatever that is. And then the repository or the website, ancestry.com, familysearch.com, fultonhistory.com, or Danvers Archival Center, Maine State Archives, Penobscot Marine Museum, Susquehanna County Historical Society. So it's either the overall website or the overall building you're going to, whereas the collection is the smaller unit. The date accessed. And then in notes, if I see something that's hard to read because it's had water damage, if something is just completely lost my train of thought, guys. Sorry. It's been quite a week. So notes about the condition or restrictions on use. Or, if there's something where I want to use something, but it says you have to have an acknowledgement, anything like that. I have this down at the bottom because when I was in one of those, and you won't see this, but I'll pull one up. So if I have a full citation because I am dealing with something like a journal article, I'm just pulling up a citation so I can show you this. Come on, computer. So here's one. Oops. My computer is really slow tonight. I apologize for this. So what I would do with this is if I'm working, at my computer and have an article, I just do that and copy the citation there. And that way I have it. And then on the other side of this piece of paper, or a second piece of paper, I write down a synopsis of what I got from this. So if I'm looking at, say the Weston Sears paper, I will write that I got the pedigree, that I got this letter with the information about an aunt, and so on. And then this space, any questions I come up with from this source, I put in here. Doesn't name mother, mentions cousin Lucy, who is she? Or says married, but had one of them been married before, or where's the divorce? I've got 2 marriages for this person, but I don't have a divorce or a death record for spouse 1. And so, but what this does is it gives you all of the information you need to put together a citation. And by doing it this way, it becomes automatic because it helps me remember what I got from what piece of paper. Now, if I'm looking at Ancestry and doing a family, as long as they're within a couple pages of each other in say a book of baptisms, what I might do here, I would probably do this for the first one in the family. And then here I would put, so let's say I did Elizabeth up here. I would do Sarah and her baptism date, and Catherine and her baptism date, and William and his baptism date, rather than doing all of this every time. But doing this has made my life much saner. So as I said, I'll send this out. You're free to use it. And the other reason I like it is it helps me remember why it's important to have the citation, that I got this bit of information from here. I sometimes have put in the notes column, it's Peter McGee again. He goofed up another name because my great-grandfather stunk at names, and he sent me on at least 4 different wild goose chases where he put the wrong name in a record that he was the informant for. So, sometimes it is me commenting of, so, and like, let's say I looked at the obituary for my grandfather. Not the one I cited earlier, but the other grandfather, where my grandfather's second wife didn't mention my mother from the first marriage. I would probably put that in there, or, I might put, done by second wife, maybe an unreliable narrator. So, you can put comments about the physical quality, about the quality of the information. If the information, you can't figure out who the informant was, you might want to note that somewhere here. Or if you can figure out who the informant was, you can say, looks like so-and-so was the informant. Those of you who remember my Ithamar Wilkins, where there's the progression from the family trees back through indexes and such, and where there's the 1840s copy and then the 1720s one, where I actually look, the kids are all listed as born in the 17 teens and early 20s. And by looking through the rest of the book with the handwriting, I can figure that list was probably written about 1732, 33, based on what's in the same handwriting. I might well put that in here, that not contemporary, but close, handwriting suggests early 1730s as a date of writing. So this is my cheat sheet. And I find that it works. It just takes a couple minutes when I pull out a new book or magazine at an archive or other repository. And the other thing, going back to the question you asked earlier, if I do a screenshot of something at a website, if I have this, I then staple the screenshot to this. And it's all there in nice one package. And then I put it in the folder for that family. And if I can't find it again, at least I have the screenshot. Does that make sense? Is why I'm finding that I've been doing this form, I don't know, about a year and a half now. I used to just write this down in whatever notebook I was using or on the back of a photocopy. And it was about a year and a half ago, I decided that I really needed to put this together, because my memory is not what it used to be. My organizational skills are not what a librarian should be. So yeah, I have just piles of paper in various places. A friend of mine gave me a little nameplate for my desk that says chaos coordinator. So anyhow, that's this is my quick and dirty guide to how to not drive yourself crazy with keeping track of where you got information. So you may find I know someone who loves, they don't use 3x5 index cards, they use 5x7 index cards. And for everything they look at, they take an index card and write this stuff on one side of the card, on the lined side, and then the stuff that's the sort of what they got from a summary of what they got from it on the back side of the card. Works for them. And they have a little box, with dividers for every project. I'd never find anything again that way, but it works for them. So any questions?
BJ, I have a question about something you mentioned with family search way back in the beginning. Did I understand you to say that the library editions of Family Search have more access than like an individual account does?
If it's an affiliate library, I mean, if you go to a library that's not an affiliate, no, but some libraries have signed up to be an affiliate, and there are certain things that you can get at an affiliate library that you can't. I mean, while we're talking, I will try to pull one up so that I can show you, but basically it goes back to the contracts that were in many cases signed long before the internet existed. Let me see if I can remember one that
So like, for example, did you say there's a cost involved to the library or?
No, no, there's not, which is one reason I encourage libraries to do it. Oops, I did the wrong thing here.
No doubt the original contract says something like can only be accessed from a proper family search library of
Right.
some sort. And then that's been interpreted within
Yeah,
LDS's legal branch to be any of our affiliate libraries are considered the same. They're under the big umbrella of the main library.
right.
And that's good enough to satisfy that contractual term.
Yeah.
That's no doubt what's going on.
So let me show you one. This is the Middleton, Massachusetts church records. And when you scroll down here, see the little key? Here, I'll blow this up. See the little key over the camera? That means that's a locked. And if we click here, we won't get it. We'll get this message. And occasionally you'll find one that just says Family Search Center, which is the ones at the churches. Most of them have both of these. Whereas if we go back, let me close out of this. And go into the vital records. If I remember correctly, we should be able to just get through to these. See how this doesn't have the key? So if we click through to here, we get the records. And you know, where I mentioned the image number, this is what I would put in. Let's say if I went to image, if this is where I found something, here's the film number, here's the image number, and here's the image. And in fact, what's really funny is this is that book I was just talking about of how I was able to figure out when something was written by the handwriting. So that's this. So I've gotten to the point where generally if I'm doing something at Family Search, I do the film number and the image number, because then I can get right back to something instead of having to search through the 1,100 pages again. Does that make sense to everybody why it's worth doing? So yeah, that's the scoop on that. Yeah, so you work with the Family History Library. If you're a librarian here and you're interested, email me. Sam, are you still here? You did it for the archives, didn't you?
We started the process and then IT couldn't make it work.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because but a smaller library should be able to. But if you can make it work, it's worth doing for your library. It's just, you know, how often you get to add something extra for free. My frustration is at the library, we actually have two networks. We have both the state IT network and the main school and library network. And I generally tie into the state network because that's the hardwired one. And to use the affiliate library stuff, I need to be on our Wi-Fi. So I have to disconnect from the state one and go to the library and school one, which means I have to disconnect from my second monitor, and it gets frustrating. But yeah, just email me and I'll find the right information for you.
That was why the archives couldn't do it, was because the archives didn't have the library network.
Yeah, and the state IT department can be interesting. So Okay, so let me stop the recording at this point.